Everyone. It is, and I say this every week. I even told Chloe this is how it's going to open because I say it every week. My favorite time of the week, being brown at work alive. Absolutely my favorite time. And all of y'all know who hang with me. It is that time because of the favorite. Well, I'll just say this because of how blessed I am with the people in my network. And this fabulous young lady is one. And I can't wait for you to experience Chloe Ford. Before we get into it, let me introduce you to her. After graduating in 2010 with a bachelor's degree in textile and apparel management, Chloe served as a manager at several retail locations. It was her next role as a recruiter for NC State College of Textiles that led her to her dream career. During her 2 years in that position, she helped increase the college's application rate by 40% and introduced numerous students to the only college in the United States devoted entirely to textiles. Chloe had never felt so fulfilled, and she fell in love with recruiting. Today, Chloe is the manager of a global diversity program and partnerships at Bain and Company, where she leads a successful diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic partnership team in New York City. Welcome to Bringing Brown at Work Live, Chloe.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so
Okay, and I
excited.
got to say this to everybody. Chloe used to work with me. I was honored to be her coach at one time. So when I read a bio like that, look, I'm so proud and fabulous.
Thank
I'm
you,
so proud of this
Linda.
fabulous woman.
I
Yes.
appreciate that. You've meant so much to me. So I really appreciate that coming from you.
Ah, this is an honor. This is an honor. So
Same.
I'm going to open this dialogue with this imposter syndrome, the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. People that suffer from imposter syndrome may also have a risk of increased anxiety.
Mhm.
So let's just
Mhm.
sit in that for a minute. Now, all of you that are listening to this live, or you're listening to this on replay, you might be catching this in the podcast, heard me read the bio of this fabulous woman. And let me also let you know that she was featured, she was asked to come back and speak at that university to the upcoming graduates to share her experience over the past, I think it was 10 years, right,
Yeah.
Chloe? Yeah.
Mhm.
And she was asked to come back. So clearly, Chloe has made a name for herself, yet experienced, and maybe even today, she'll share with us
Mhm.
imposter syndrome. Chloe, help us. Let's take a look back. Where do
Yeah.
you think was there something that triggered this early for you? Tell us a little bit about how imposter syndrome set in for you.
Absolutely. I was actually thinking about it today. I try to take like an intentional walk every single day, try to get to it at least once, throughout the day. And I was having, kind of like talk to myself and just thinking about this opportunity to come in and share my journey. And, I want to be very mindful. I'm very close to my family. I am a truly rooted family person. But as I was thinking about kind of where imposter syndrome probably has shown up, I think it probably, definitely showed up in early years as a
Mm,
you know middle school, high school.
yes.
I'm one of four girls, and love them dearly, super close to all of them. And they're very accomplished women, right? And
Mm,
my
mhm.
parents didn't, put us or pin us against one another, try to
Sure.
create any sort of competition. But having that, um, looking at my older two sisters, having my younger sister come behind me, I felt like I had so much pressure to
Mm,
succeed and excel. I carried, a pretty strong name, the last name Ford. I carried, and my dad would always say, like, look, your name is your reputation. And so that stuck
wow.
with us, or stuck with me. And so I'm very thoughtful about how I present myself to the world. And I think it just kind of continued to carry on, throughout college, throughout the career. I think it became more pronounced when I started, my professional journey. I think it
Ah,
definitely was a lot clearer for me that I was experiencing anxiety on levels that I've never experienced as a kid and
mhm.
as, in college and high school. But it was something that I needed to take, I didn't have words for.
Yes,
I was competing against so many things, against what I had established for myself, what I felt like was excellence. I was
yes,
thinking about what my parents had established for us in terms of what their idea, of excellence looked like. My sisters as well too, and I
yeah.
think that played a role in the early stages of imposter syndrome, and just continued to get developed over time and heightened over time without really having the words to call it what it truly
What it
is today.
is, yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I would say I've had the same experiences, and you and I have had a lot of conversations
Yeah.
late at night in our sessions, right? And via email and other places. And I had the same thing growing up. And I often tell my audience as I do my clients, Chloe, you've heard this phrase, who you are personally is
Mhm.
who you are professionally. You
Yeah.
cannot separate that. And I truly believe that a lot of the things we deal with enter in early on. Imposter syndrome been around, right, for a while. It
Right.
had this terminology, I would say,
Exactly.
has become popular, known, spoken about, but the last 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
maybe. Um,
Mhm.
so
Definitely.
now we can label it, right? Now we
Absolutely.
know what
Have a
that is.
term to
We have
it.
we have a term to it, exactly.
Right.
And, I I'd love for you to share a little bit about you said it translate into your professional life.
Yeah.
Share with you if you would, when did you first realize, "Okay, wait a minute, something's up?" And then what was the turning point for you to recognize that's false, but I need to deal with it before it cripples me?
I can answer the first or the last question first. I think
Okay, okay.
if I'll be honest, I probably will say over the last 2 years, working with you has helped me to identify that this is actually imposter syndrome. And that I am experiencing kind of an outer body experience here in terms of
Mm,
looking at myself, understanding my accomplishments, understanding the trajectory of my career, but not being able to appreciate it, not being able to sit back and congratulate myself at all. And I just didn't. I guess because I've been grinding and I've been working so hard over the last few
yep,
years, I didn't really
yep,
have enough time to like sit and think about it. I kind of just brushed it off whenever I had that feeling of anxiousness or feeling like I wasn't worthy enough
yeah,
for some of the accolades or the praise or the accomplishments. I just kind of
right.
brushed it off. But sitting down and having those really intentional conversations with you and the pandemic, where I had to come to grips
Mm,
who
yes,
I am outside, who is Chloe outside of all of the companies, all of the jobs that I have done.
yes.
Um, that is when I was able to truly identify it, truly. And I think I will say when I transitioned to, so I moved from North Carolina to New York about five
Mhm.
years ago, and I took on an opportunity with a fairly large company, and it was exciting. It was
Yes.
truly a dream come true, especially off of some of the experiences that I had previously had. And I'm just eager beaver, and I'm coming in. I'm excited about it, and this little Southern girl coming to New York and wide eye, had no idea what I was, heading
Mm,
into whatsoever. And if you know
right.
anything about New York City, it's going to make or break you for sure.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's going to put a mirror to you for sure. And
Yes.
I think I just doubled down and I focused. And
Mm.
what ended up happening as I'm talking about it now and just kind of rethinking it, I was adopting what I thought I needed to become to survive during
Ah,
that transition. And I'm still
wow.
very early in my career. So I was adopting this approach of professionalism, adopting this approach of a hard worker, adopting this approach of being the Black woman who is focused and driven and ambitious. And I,
Yes.
you get lost in that. You get lost
Yes,
in
you do. Yes.
So when the pandemic came around and when I had the opportunity to start working with you, I had to really sit down in my thoughts, really sit and confront myself and really have conversations of, who are you outside of this? Who are you
Mm,
outside of this, Chloe?
mhm.
And I think from there, that's when I really started truly understanding what imposter syndrome really was to its core.
Yes. Yes, yes. And that's so important. It's that peeling back, right?
Yeah.
It's tough work, but we do have to do that introspective deep dive
Yeah.
to really understand what is the root to this? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel like I have to adapt? Why am I
Absolutely.
taking on these other definitions
Exactly.
rather than just showing up in my authentic self
Yeah.
and realizing that it's enough?
It is enough. And you know what's so funny, Linda, about that though, is that so my first role coming into New York, my background is in, recruitment. And now that I think about it, because I have a fashion degree, and I went to a textile university, I felt like I had to overcompensate when I
Mm,
transitioned into human capital, when I transitioned into HR, recruitment, and
yeah.
diversity. I felt like I had to overcompensate. So I was doing things at a very intense level because I felt like I had to catch up. Because I'm like, this isn't my background. I for sure do not belong here because this isn't my background, right? I would always, like, even when I would share, and I would openly share, like, listen, my background is this. I worked out in the, industry for a little bit, transitioned into this. And I would always get the, oh wow, okay, that's interesting. And and as I'm taking it in, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to really prove to you why I
Mm.
belong here, right? And when I really didn't, like I had
No, and you were the one that brought the opposite thought process to the table. You were the
exactly,
one saying, "Hey, by the way, I don't really have experience," but
absolutely.
yet you had an application rate of 40%. I mean,
Right,
so
right.
you had successes. Yes,
And it
yes,
just didn't connect the dots to me because I was coming
yes,
from academia, right? I was coming
yes,
from a
yes.
textile background, going into a finance company, going into corporate America. So I
Mhm,
felt like I had to do more. And I
mhm.
felt like I had to show up in like bigger, more aggressive
Yes.
ways. And I'm a hard worker regardless. So that it wasn't like, difficult. And I was
Mhm.
doing things that I thoroughly enjoyed as well, too, right? Like my
Yes.
heart truly is in creating equitable spaces for marginalized communities, right? And so I
Mhm.
was working directly with college students, and I'm telling them like, you're worthy and you could do this and you're capable. And
Yet.
right. And yet I'm sitting here dealing with all of this. So that in itself felt a little bit like imposter syndrome, right? Because
Mm.
I'm telling you
Wow.
something that I'm not even telling myself, right? I'm not
Yes,
affirming to
yes.
myself, right?
Yes, yes, and
Yeah,
that's so key. I mean, Chloe, thank you for sharing that because
of course.
I know I've done the same thing. It didn't matter what school I went to. It didn't matter, anything that I had done. If I stepped into a role, I'm like, "Ah, you know what?
Yeah.
I didn't take that class or I didn't major in that.
Mhm.
So therefore, I'm probably not going to be really good at this,
Good at
right?"
it. Exactly.
Look, look, I'm a coach. And okay, and everybody knows that knows me, that follows me. I am real. I have not arrived. I don't pretend like I've arrived. And I still have imposter syndrome creep
Mhm.
in, right? It creeped in several months ago when what
Yeah.
I was praying for, what I had worked hard for happened.
Yep.
I received a board seat, a paid board seat.
And that's
And
amazing.
for and
Congratulations on that.
thank you so much. And
Yes.
for a minute, I was like, who?
Cool,
I
right.
I was
Who
like,
are y'all
"Oh,
sure?
oh, are you sure?" And
Right.
then when I found out who recommended me and we went and had lunch, I was like, "Okay, what
Right.
sure.
It's a shocker.
Me?
It's a
Right,
shocker. It's a
right?"
shocker.
And so it takes a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, now it took me a minute, and then I got over it because girls, I'm on this board and I'm doing my thing. Okay, let me just say it. But I wanted to connect with you and share with everybody. Look, this is a journey. This thing. I mean,
Yeah.
don't think you conquer it. Would you not agree? I mean, you don't totally
100%.
conquer it, right?
100%. Like I was telling you before we joined, I had a moment this morning where I definitely felt like preparing for this and kind of in my quiet time, just thinking about it. And I had to journal. And that's one of those practices for me that
Mm,
is extremely vital in my life at this point.
mhm.
And just journal out my thoughts and my emotions and my
Yes.
anxiousness about all of it. And I was, had a moment of imposter syndrome in that moment. I literally wrote down in my journal, like, I'm getting ready to talk about imposter syndrome, but I'm feeling emotions of imposter syndrome right now. I feel like, who wants to hear me talk about this? You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I had to reaffirm myself in that, right? Like, I can share a perspective. I can share, my experience, right?
Yes.
I want to see more people who look like me share their open experience, to
Exactly.
be more vulnerable. So why not? So it was a moment of just having that conversation with myself to kind of do some of
Yes.
that, undo some of that self talk that we always
Right.
do.
Yep.
Um,
That
but
NST, girlfriend. Negative
yes,
self-talk.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And
Yeah.
you know, and it's crazy how, when it shows up, you don't even realize that a lot of it isn't even you, right? A lot of it is stuff that you have adopted, whether it's
Yes.
society, whether it's
Yes.
family, whether it is, the environment that you're working in, whatever the case
Yes.
may be, especially, as a woman, but then to add on the additional layer of as a Black woman, you are constantly told who you should be, how you should show up,
Yep. Yep.
the way that you should fix everything down to your hair,
Hair. Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you are adopting all of these perceptions, you're adopting all of these opinions about who you should be. And
Yes.
it really starts stripping away your identity. It starts stripping
Mm.
away, the innate talents and gifts that you are given. And you have to really work hard and intentional to back yourself out of that, because you
Yes.
will talk yourself out based off of other things that have been shared or given to you, right?
Yes.
And
It's
I
true.
had, yeah, I had to really quickly snap myself out of that this morning. I'm like, girl, get over yourself.
Well,
You
I'm
know?
glad you did. It's invaluable. We have to share these. I mean, if it's not us, who's going to help us tell the
Absolutely.
stories for us, right? Women that look like you and me. We don't, there's not enough of this, out here on the web, out here in the universe being shared and
Right.
being spoken about. So I'm so glad you took that walk, journaled, and
Yeah.
got over. As Laretha's what that's joined us live on Facebook, she's like, yes, changing that negative self-talk. Yes,
Yeah.
Laretha, that's right. And so that's the same thing that you've done, Chloe. So
Yeah.
if we could dive in just a little bit more, if if we could fast forward to today.
Yeah.
So you're at Bain and Company
I
today. You know,
am.
fabulous role. Kudos to you.
Thank
I've been on
you.
the journey with you. I'm so
Yes,
happy
you
and
have.
proud
Yes, you have.
proud of you. Share with us, Chloe, today. I mean, how are you managing the imposter syndrome if it when it does show? And
Yeah,
what have you seen when you look in the mirror and when you look at your team today?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great question. You know what I've learned, and I'll be honest with you, when I took the opportunity at Bain, I that was a leap of faith, if I will be very honest with you, right? Because my background is nothing remotely close to consulting at all. But I know
Right.
what I know, right? I know what I know. I know diversity, I know
That's right.
partnerships, right? I know how to
That's
lead
right.
a team. And those are the things that I had to rely on, right? Is that you are hiring me for this specific role. You're not hiring me to come in and consult
Yeah.
whatsoever. You're hiring me for the knowledge that I already have, that is in alignment here. And so I had to really kind of clarify that for myself, so that I didn't get nervous about it. But you know what also has helped me with it too, Linda, is just being honest, and being
Yeah.
vulnerable and just
Yeah.
being clear. Like, this is a moment of imposter syndrome. The first month, the second month into the transition, I felt it like none other. And I think you and I
Mm.
maybe
Yeah, we
had
did.
a
We did.
conversation about it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt it like none other. And there was a constant need to just be overly prepared, um,
Mm.
always quick to respond to something, right? There was a moment where I just felt like, okay, I have to make sure that everyone knows that I'm capable and I'm smart because I'm getting ready to get found out here. They're gonna find out.
And this thing, and you know what? I gotta share with it. That thought, won't it wear you out? It'll wear you
It
out.
absolutely will.
You will
I
be
mean,
so exhausted.
exactly. And I think one of the moments that hit home for me, I have such a supportive manager, and she's great, and so I felt very comfortable with sharing that with her. Like, hey,
Wow.
this is a bit of a transition for me. Like, I know what I know, and I know what you all hired me for, but this environment is brand new to me, and so
Mm.
allow me to be vulnerable in this time and share with you that this is going to be a little bit of a learning curve, right? And she was so supportive about, like, absolutely,
Wow.
Kelly, we're not looking for you to you are great at what you do, and that's why we hired you, and we know that you're capable. And so having that space to be vulnerable
Yes.
was extremely valuable for me to just be able to openly share it. I think that's the other thing that we don't do a lot is
Hmm.
openly tell people, this is what I'm feeling right now.
Yes.
This is how I'm processing this emotion right now. I'm anxious. I'm fearful. I don't feel
Yes.
worthy of this, right? And it
Yes.
doesn't, by no means am I saying to share this directly with your boss or your
Sure.
manager.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Finding someone who you can be very real and raw with, right? Like, I
Yes.
feel like you and I have been able to have that relationship, right?
Yes.
I'm able to share that with my family, with my partner,
Hmm.
right? Like that stuff is extremely important to me. And then also actively getting into, if we're kind of turning the page and talking about mental health practices,
Yep.
also getting into therapy, right? Where I
If
can
you need it, absolutely. Absolutely.
absolutely. And having
Absolutely.
an even safer space
Yes.
to openly say, like, this is a bit of a learning curve for me. I'm a little nervous about it. I know that I can do it, but I'm a little nervous about this transition. And that's where I am today. And I share that with I'm really big on being transparent. I share that with my team every day. Like, we're
Oh,
learning,
fabulous.
we're growing. I tell them, one of the best things I read not too long ago, I believe it was a psychiatrist, and she was mentioning that she doesn't like the term expert because it was an anti-learning term. And so she would
Wow.
always want to be
Oh,
considered a
I like
learner.
that.
Yeah, and I've adopted that approach. I'm not an
Yes.
expert to anything. I want to evolve and I want to learn as much as I possibly can. And that helps to, like, release the pressure off
Yes.
of you with this thing of, I have to know it all and be ready to perform at 100%,
Yes.
you know,
Oh my
versus,
God, Chloe, that's powerful. I
evolving
love
into,
that.
right.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, Chloe, because, and I want to just reiterate some things
Yeah,
that you shared because I think it's so important. We've talked about this on other Being Brown at Work Live episodes where your network, your ecosystem of support, one of my other guests would call it, is critical.
it
You
is.
need to have those safe people, those safe spaces because, okay, you're very fortunate. You're in a culture with a company with a leader that
Right,
you could feel comfortable sharing that with, right?
right.
There are some people in
No,
environments don't have that
absolutely. It's a
space.
privilege. That is a
Oh,
privilege.
it's for
Absolutely.
real.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So, but to your point, if you've got a partner, a best friend, a mentor, someone safe that you can have those conversations with. I know I have them. I've had them at work, establishing a deep relationship with certain individuals that I could text and I
right.
would say, "Hey, I've got a lot going on." He says, "Okay, is it a suburban conversation after work or should I come to your office?" But I felt safe sharing with him.
Absolutely.
Such great advice. And
Yeah.
then allowing yourself grace,
At
giving yourself
a
grace.
100%. Yes, being kind to yourself. And
Yes.
I know that that sounds so cliche, like, because especially coming from a person like myself, I am not well, my friends and family probably will say differently, but I don't think I'm an emotional person. I don't know, Linda, I don't feel like I'm a super emotional
No, you're
person.
not super emotional. I,
No.
I agree. Yes, 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 I
So I
agree.
I kind of operate in the, like, black and white. Gray is
Yes.
very, very interesting to me. And so whenever I hear the phrase like be kind to yourself and or the phrases like be kind to yourself and being authentic, bringing your
Mhm,
authentic self,
mhm.
I kind of roll my eyes sometimes, but
Oh,
it's the
yeah.
truth. It's the
I
truth.
remember you rolling eyes in sessions we would have.
It's like here we go with this,
Yeah,
right? Like,
you
what does that
would.
mean? What does
Right,
that mean? But you have
right.
to learn what
Yeah,
being kind, and I'm on that journey. If I'll be very frank, I'm really on that journey of what it means to be kind
yes,
to Chloe means. And I think a part of that journey is establishing really, healthy boundaries. That's one
yes,
of the pieces, right? But then also just being honest with
yes,
yourself of how you
exactly.
feel as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely. And doing that then turns you into a stronger leader of which
yes.
you are able to share with your team. Because Laritha here, she shared, I'm learning how to be more transparent with my team. It's
Mhm.
definitely a struggle for me. So, Laritha's going through some of that challenges as well. But I
Yeah.
think if you would agree, Chloe, it starts with herself, right?
It does. It
Yeah.
100% does. You can't the thing that I take away that you said actually at the beginning is who you are in your personal
Hmm.
life is who you
Hmm.
will be in your professional life, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I wasn't really transparent at all. It was work mode for me for a very long time. I'll keep it very real up until maybe 2.5 years ago. Mark the date. I started becoming more transparent and more
Hmm.
open because
Yeah.
for me, work is work. I was quick to just say, here's this is the line,
Hmm.
here's the,
Yeah. Yeah.
the boundary here. But I learned through the work with you around the emotional intelligence aspect,
Yeah.
along with work with my therapist as well
Hmm.
too, is that, you know, showing who you are, being vulnerable does not make you weak. um it it,
Boom.
it
Exactly.
it doesn't chink your armor or anything like
No.
that, right? It actually shows a lot more strength and
Yes.
character. And I'm learning that it's still
Sure.
uncomfortable,
Sure.
because it's something that I've had to unlearn, is to be a little bit more open and share more
Yeah.
about who I am. But I find that people gravitate to you more. In that
Yeah.
way, you become a better listener.
Yeah.
In that way, more compassionate. Someone who it not only extends grace to yourself, but to
Yep.
others as
Yep.
well, right? So you're not so
Yeah.
quick to cut people off. And so that transparency piece 100% begins with you in order
Yeah.
for you to feel comfortable doing it with others.
Other people. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Chloe.
Yeah,
This, I say this all the time. Time just flies
I
when
know.
we're having these wonderful conversations, but you have dropped so many wonderful nuggets. So please, if you're catching this on the
Yeah.
replay it back again. If you're watching this live, go catch it on the replay because this has been a phenomenal session
Yeah,
on a really critically important topic that
right.
we tend to bury, especially as Black women, as Black
Absolutely.
people, but especially as Black women. We try to push this aside. So,
Hmm.
Chloe, as we start to close out this session, we've got a couple of minutes left. If
Yeah,
you were to offer either one or maybe two very critical things you want to leave the audience with, saying if you don't do anything else and
yeah,
you're struggling like Laritha is with, getting rid of negative self-talk, being transparent and vulnerable, really starting to manage your
yeah.
imposter syndrome because it's not probably going to go away totally. What
Mm.
would you offer?
I think the biggest thing for me is understanding who your identity is outside of any place, any role, any
Mm,
accomplishment. Really understanding yourself to the core, right? What you like, what you do not like, what inspires you, what you want to feel like walking away from any experience, what your character is, like really sitting down, having that quiet time of truly understanding who you are, silencing all of the noise, silencing all of the opinions, and really spending
yes,
time with yourself so that you can start feeling worthy of the opportunities that you've worked for and that come your way, right? And still not feeling like it makes you if they're there or if they're not there. I
not
think
there.
the
Oh
biggest,
my gosh. Yes, yes.
definitely. And then secondly, tap into resources, right? It can be mentorship. It could be coaching, it could be therapy, it could be spirituality, whatever the case may be. Truly tap into those other resources that you're not operating in a silo, and you have the opportunity to share those emotions and those thoughts and those feelings in a healthy and conducive way.
Love it, love it, love it. Chloe,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I
Thank
shared with
you,
you when you
Linda.
said yes, it was such an honor to have you as a guest.
Same.
I deeply appreciate you. So super proud of you,
Thank you.
and love the connection that we have. I absolutely
Absolutely.
love
Me
it.
too.
I've been blessed because of it. Truly blessed and honored knowing you. Look, if you're catching this on the replay, if you're catching it live, however you're catching this episode on imposter syndrome, and you've got some comments or questions, or you want to even share some of your challenges, please put it in the comments. I'll
Yeah.
share them with Chloe. We would love to engage with you. But until next time, uh, which is next Tuesday, you
Yeah.
guys take good care. All right. Till next
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Linda.